It's an additional 8 weeks of paid parental leave that we're looking at here, and of course encouraging for that to be split in families where there are 2 carers. Just how significant is that change?
Look, it is really significant. So at the moment, Australian families have got access to the second least adequate paid parental leave scheme in the OECD. So America is the only country right now with a less adequate scheme than we have. For 11 years, paid parental leave has not been changed in any meaningful way. Today's announcement is long overdue, and it is incredibly welcome, because an additional 8 weeks of paid leave, the difference that will make in the lives of children, but also of parents, is so significant that we are having a discussion about how it will be split and shared, and that we're talking about the fact that encouraging dads to take extended parental leave as the norm, that is also really significant progress.
So when you talk about the difference that it will make for families, what are the sorts of things that this will now allow families to be able to do when they're looking at, it's essentially 6 months of paid parental leave, so those crucial first 6 months in a child's life?
Yeah, so look, paid parental leave is an incredibly influential and important policy. It's one of the only levers that any government has to influence the caring patterns that are set inside homes. Now, what we know globally is that the caring pattern that is set in the first year of a child's life persists over the course of their life. So when you have a situation like we have in Australia, where despite the fact that lots of mum and dads approach family life wanting to be equal caregivers or to share it equitably, they confront a system that actually puts them on a path where the expectation is still very much that mums will become primary caregivers and dads will remain and become primary breadwinners. That doesn't actually match the reality in families. It doesn't match the cost of living. It doesn't match the fact that in lots of instances, families do want to share the care equitably, but our policy doesn't enable that. And that's why at the moment, dads in Australia take less than 20% of the parental leave that dads take globally. And that's not because dads in Australia don't want to engage in caregiving in that critical first year of life. So we know that the benefits in terms of child development and health are huge when they've got parents that are supported to stay at home and care for them in those early months and year.
It's also likely to have an impact, I imagine, as well on the perennial issue of the gender pay gap. What sort of impact are you anticipating that this policy could have there?
Yeah, so changing paid parental leave, particularly when you're making it more expansive but more equitable, so when you change it so that you are specifically encouraging dads to take it, that does represent structural reform, because it actually makes a difference in the way that both parents are able to not just care at home, but how they then participate in the paid workforce. So what we know around the world is that when mums and dads share the care more equitably, their participation in paid work stays more consistent over the course of their lives. So right now, mums and dads, or men and women in Australia, until the age that they have children, have got really similar working patterns. But what happens when a baby comes along is that a mum's working hours and income drops really significantly. So modelling out from Treasury this week showed that for at least 5 years, mums' earnings dropped by 55%. Now, in other countries around the world where dads are supported to care and participate in paid work, that's what they do. So the consistent attachment to paid work stays more steady than it does right now. So, but it is worth saying that the proposal that's on the table right now, they've definitely stated they want to look at how to encourage mums and dads to split the paid parental leave, but it is going to be referred to the task force, the Gender Equality Task Force that Sam Mostyn is chairing, to look at how this can be designed to maximise how parents share the care.
It must be also really critical when you're talking about having more than one child as well. For women, there are those cumulative years that start to rack up when you don't have those sorts of structural policies in place. So what do you see as being the framework in which we allow this policy to be supported by other approaches, including, of course, there has been a focus on childcare when you're obviously getting children who are a little bit older and seeing families progress when children start to enter early childhood education, those sorts of factors. What do you see as being part of that framework?
Yeah, so look, at the Parenthood, we published a significant piece of research at the beginning of 2021 looking at what policies would make Australia a world-leading country to be a parent and raise children. And the first policy that we identified as being critical is having a world-leading paid parental leave scheme for all of the reasons we've just discussed. The health, social, economic benefits of a decent paid parental leave scheme are incontrovertible. But the next piece of the puzzle, which is absolutely critical for both children and families, is having access to quality early childhood education and care that is delivered by a properly paid and well-supported workforce. These two policies can be described as sort of infrastructure. They are, in effect, the roads and bridges that parents need to be able to walk between home and work. And at the moment, parents and families are left to build their own highways, in effect, because we don't have adequate paid parental leave and we don't have access to quality, affordable early childhood education and care. So families are left scrambling, building their own infrastructure. Now, we don't expect bankers who work in the city to design and implement their own rail system to get there. We don't expect them to build a multi-level car park so they've got parking. We provide that public infrastructure so that people can get to work. What we need to do in Australia is invest in the infrastructure that enables parents, both men and women, to move between work and home. And this announcement today around paid parental leave, in combination with the commitment from the federal Labor government to make early childhood education and care significantly more affordable for families, represents a really significant investment in that infrastructure. It's a recognition that it is lacking, that we need to actually put money and time and energy into ensuring families and children have the opportunity to thrive. And right now we're not delivering on that. And there's been advocates and experts that have campaigned around this for decades. And it is so incredibly heartening to see tangible commitments on the table to address these issues.
Georgie Dent, Executive Director of The Parenthood, we thank you so much for speaking with us about this critical issue this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.